Hello there. Hi. Hi, hi, hi. 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 I'm definitely not muted this time, I'm sure of it. Oh, hi. Hi. Hi, Paris. Hi, Silva. Hi, Raz. Hi, Callus. How are we all doing tonight? Just had dinner after a long day of work. Rip. Yes. I'm good. I'm glad I'm not muted. Yeah. But yeah, how are we all doing? Have you all had a nice day? Are you having a barbecue? I made barbecue today for dinner. I had barbecue chicken. What kind of barbecue are you having? Important questions. Important questions. Alice! Thank you so much for the gift sub. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's an American holiday, so bugs and hot dogs. What holiday is it in America? In May? I thought you had a snow. That's July, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. What kind of holiday is that? Do you think of my little backdrop of all my little dark angels I've been building off stream? Very happy with them. They're all custom built by hand. Memorial Day? What are you memorializing? We don't really know American holidays. We unsurprisingly, we don't really hear much about your holidays other than the 4th of July over here. Where were we? Last time on Dragon Ball Z. No, last time in The Lion, Son of the Forest. It's a story so far. We had the lion. Ooh, don't knock over the minis cable. Do not. Do not. We had a really cool space battle last time. Oh, soldiers who lost their life in war. That makes sense. That's also kind of fitting for the kind of content that we're doing today, I suppose. So last time we had a really epic space battle. It was absolutely amazing. Sarafax found out the rumors of the lion, and we were introduced to his council in the Chaos Warband, the 10,000 Eyes. They sent a fleet to Avalis to discover the truth of the lion and conquer the planet. Um, Meanwhile, Zabriel, on the orders of the lion, found three Dark Angels from the Heresy era, and it made the lion prove himself. We met the Red Whisper, Kai, and Zahariel? Not Zahariel. God, who was the others? I can't remember. I'm sure the book will remind us shortly. Um, and so they readied themselves to defend when they found the incoming attack fleet. And it seemed like the best they could do was mutually assured destruction, and we had some really amazing fights that I can't really do justice without rereading that whole thrilling section all over again. But it was fantastic. Really, really. I couldn't stop reading it. I said one more page, and then suddenly we were 5 chapters. We were 5 more chapters later, and it was very late. Heresy. Um, and then yeah, we thought it was going to be mutually assured destruction, and then this pirate fleet comes out of nowhere, and it turns out the pirate fleet has more Space Marines of the Dark Angels leading it, and they wipe out the Chaos guys. Um, the High Metal Master. We're just finishing up our recap, and Baylor, the uncorrupted Fallen, chose at that point when he saw the battle was over, or as good as over. He retreated, he retreated to save himself and to pass on the information he had found. We concluded chapter 2. We are just over halfway. We're just over the halfway mark on the book now. Oh, maybe we're about 2/3 of the way through. We're about 2/3 of the way through the book. Yes, one more chapter. One more chapter. It was extensive. This whole book is one fairly short story. It's more about the lion's introduction. Hi, Evie. Evie. I want to read the book and have my coffee. You want to be on my lap? Come here. Come here and read with me. But yes. Yes. I have a cat. I lap on. So. Finished 3 books after a week. Hence, you're reading along. Excellent. I'm glad. I have never enjoyed a book this much, I don't think. It's very fast, well paced. It just kind of pulls you along. So, I suppose we should resume. I'm recording. Yes, I am recording. The Lion, Son of the Forest, Part 3. Atonement. That book cover. Such a cool book cover. Chapter 23. Lionel Johnson has a singular focus, allowing him to concentrate absolutely on something, to the exclusion of all distractions. It is an ability he has possessed for as long as he can remember. It was the only thing that kept him alive during his youth in the forests of Caliban, before Luther found him. When he was hunting its mega predators and being hunted by them in turn, keeping something in his thoughts is not a problem. Not thinking about anything is a great deal harder. The lion sits cross-legged in the chambers set aside for him for his use on the Endeavour-class light cruiser, Glory of Terror, and attempts to clear his mind. The Lunar Knight and the rest of the fleet are licking their wounds in the Avalis system, undertaking what repairs they can and salvaging anything worthwhile from the wreckage of the battle. But the Lion is not content to sit idly. He has taken this ship to travel with most of the pirate fleet of Boar's One-Eye, as he is known to his crews, in a series of short warp jumps to where the Knight Captain swears there are more of the Fallen. Each jump is a matter of a few light years at a time, followed by an extended period of waiting as the scattered flotilla assembles itself. This is how Bors has been travelling ever since the Great Rift cut him and his navigators off from the Astronomicon. He claims that his ships have become experts in knowing exactly how far they can risk jumping each time. The Lion has little to offer this process other than bad memories of trying to reach Terra through the ruin storm, so he is trying to meditate. The problem is that his mind is desperately searching for something to fixate on. Clearing it simply provides space for a new thought to enter unbidden, sound the ship makes as it flexes in the warp, and whether that might be the precursor to a hull breach, the likelihood of the tech marine to whom Bors claims to be leading him being able to repair his armor, how long it would take to reach Terra while making jumps of this duration and frequency, even without the presence of the Great Rift, exactly what condition his father is in now, and so on and so on. An apparently endless procession of problems, dilemmas, and calculations that extends off into the distance of his own brain, each one waiting its turn. The Lion sighs. What he would not give for the serenity his brother Sanguinius was able to achieve. Troubled by visions of his own future and death though he was. Then again, few things are as serene as death, and the Lion is not yet ready to join the angel in that. He exhales and tries again. Meditation was something many of the knightly orders of Caliban valued highly, as a way of achieving clarity and focus. Clarity and focus were ever present for the Lion, though his need for the techniques were limited. Now, however, He seeks an understanding for which concentration appears to be of little use, if not actively hindering. Perhaps clearing his mind will allow him insight to visit him, if only he can keep the other thoughts clamoring for his attention quiet for long enough. He breathes in and he breathes out. He focuses on the rhythm of his breathing in hope that it will help his mind find the necessary balance between emptiness and activity. He envisions the forests of Caliban as he remembers them, mighty trees, the thick foliage, the click and whir of insects, and the distant cries of forest beasts, the rustle of wind in the canopy of leaves overhead, the occasional shaft of sunlight striking down into the dimly lit understory like a lance strike from an orbiting ship. His train of thought derails as other memories flash up, fighting through his sons, those who are traitors and those whom he damned by association, as his fleet bombards Caliban from overhead. He never intended to destroy the planet. That was and always will be his home. But his fleet had practice by that point. Chemos, Barbarus, Nuceria. Most recently, not to mention all the nameless worlds they blasted clear of hostile xenoforms when the Great Crusade was still ongoing. Still, even a ferocious orbital bombardment should not have done such damage to a world unless true planet-killing munitions were used. Perhaps the level of destruction was the result of some unforeseen interaction with the foul sorceries with which Lusa was involved. The lion grunts in irritation, banishes that line of thought from his mind, and tries again. He is not sure how much time has passed, which is an achievement in itself, given how readily his mind will latch on to tracking its passage in the absence of other stimuli. However quiet though he has tried to keep his thoughts, his senses inform him that the nature of his surroundings has changed. He opens his eyes and finds that instead of sitting on the floor of his chamber in the glory of terror, he is seated on grass in the forests of Caliban. Not the true forests that he remembers, but the mist-shrouded echo of them in which he first came back to his awareness. He was meditating in an attempt to gain some understanding of this phenomenon, how it came to be, and whether he could control it. He was not anticipating a reoccurrence of it, but he supposes that he should have. The galaxy is a strange place now, and stranger even than it used to be. Off to his right, the river is singing its silver song to him again. He becomes aware of a presence behind him, and he rises to his feet and turns. A wall looms over him, several times his height. It is the castle he saw before. He is certain of it. It is built of the same blue-grey stone, and it is next to the river. He looks to his left, but the water is empty of the fishing king in his small boat, nor is there any sign of a watcher in the dark. There is a gate in the castle wall, a thing of weathered wood studded with dark iron, and it is slightly ajar. The lion approaches cautiously, then reaches out with one hand and pushes it. It is heavy, but easily movable for a Primarch. The lion walks through the arched stone portico with the confidence of someone who ended up ruling the real Caliban, but with the alertness of someone who knows that the threats of the real Caliban were myriad, did not come just from the wild beasts of the forest. There seems little reason to assume that this echo of it, whatever it is, will be any difference. The entrance is a dim tunnel in which the black shapes of murder holes lurk above, ready to rain death down on attackers. Halfway along it, the lion sees the spiked iron slats of a portcullis in the ceiling. It is the second line of defence should the gate fall, but it does not drop at his approach. He passes through it and into the courtyard beyond. The castle is not any of the fortresses he came to know on Caliban, but it is familiar in its layout nonetheless. To his right, away from the river, is a small orchard of a dozen or so fruit trees, close packed together, and quarters that would accommodate most of the inhabitants, although the castle has a decidedly empty feel to it. In front of him are the stores, and to the left of them the kitchens, and farther to his left is the castle's great hall, although it hardly seems great to a warrior who has commanded a Gloriana-class battleship several miles in length. The tower will contain the well, and that tower will be the chambers of the castle's ruler, and that tower... The lion realizes that can see a flickering light, as of a fire, in the windows of the great hall. So perhaps there is someone in the castle after all. He moves towards the hall and realizes that he has taken the decision to move silently, but does not halt to announce himself, even though he is by any definition an intruder here. There is something oppressive about this place. He feels that to break the silence with speech would be unwise, although he cannot say why. Perhaps this is just his memories of Caliban, where making undue noise was a good way to draw attention of predators. Perhaps it is some other instinct. The lion is not armed or armoured, for his plate was damaged in the fight against the boarding party, and he had no weapons either in hand or belted to him when he began his meditation, given that he was not anticipating being transported to this place. He wonders whether his body is currently still sitting on the floor of his chambers aboard the Glory of Terror, and it is merely his mind which is here, but he does not think so. These forests took him and his companions from Kamarth to Avalis, after all, so they are certainly capable of being a conduit for physical objects. He feels the lack of his war gear, despite his own natural deadliness. Only a fool enters an unknown situation unarmed, yet here he is, drawn to the light of a fire like a winged insect fluttering to its doom. He continues to approach the hall, despite the analogy his mind has thrown up. He does not know exactly how he got here, and nor does he know how to leave. He does not feel the same tug in his chest as he did when someone or something guided him to Avalis. But there has to be a reason he found himself here at the castle, and his alternative is to turn back on a recognized landmark and wander the forests at random. At least here he might get some answers. The hall's doors are open. The lion enters cautiously, ready to respond to a challenge or to violence, but neither comes. Instead, he finds himself in a long chamber with a pitched ceiling, perhaps twice his height at its lowest, and 3 times at its highest, braced by beams of dark wood. The fire is in an alcove halfway along the far wall, and so natural does it seem that it takes the lion a moment to notice that the flames which writhe and coil there so merrily are burning nothing. The slab on which the logs would rest is empty. There is no sign of outlets or flammable gas, or any other form of more exotic fuel. It is oddly unsettling. Familiarity of this place makes it easy to nearly forget that it does not fully conform to the natural laws as he understands them. He looks away from the fire and down the length of the hall. Candelabras spaced evenly along the walls provide additional lesser light. Between them, these different sources illuminate woven tapestries and banners that hang vertically between the windows. They too are familiar, although the detail is hard to make out. The lion cannot place them. Nonetheless, their nature is clear enough. They are records of battles, great triumphs of arms achieved by the castle's ruler, or their commanders. And at the far end of the hall, seated on a high-backed chair behind a wooden table, is the wounded king. He does not move nor speak, but the lion can feel the intensity of that gaze. He sets off down the hall towards the monarch, expecting at any moment to be ordered to halt, or to state his business, or to give his name, or any number of other demands or inquiries that the master of the castle such as this might utter to an unknown intruder. However, the king says nothing. He merely watches the lion approach, his dark eyes unblinking beneath his lank grey hair and the golden circlet on his brow. The lion pauses when he is a few paces away from the table. The luster of the wood is hidden beneath a patina of dust, but 3 objects sit on it, arranged as though with ritual significance. A golden candelabra, more ornate than those decorating the walls, is in front of the king, and on his right. On his left, a spear or lance, also golden, the blade of which is wet with blood. Directly in front of the king is a broad golden chalice with figures moulded around the bowl. The lion sniffs. The lance is not the only blood in the chamber. The king is still bleeding. There is a dark stain on the clothes covering his lower stomach. The lion's ears detect the faint sound of a drop falling from the edge of the throne and landing in a puddle on the floor below. The king continues to stare, showing none of the intimidation the lion might expect from a wounded mortal alone in his own hall, confronted with a towering post-human warrior. His eyes bore into the lion, and indeed through him, as though he is seeing things far beyond the walls that surround them. Nonetheless, the lion is certain the king knows he stands there. It is just that he does not warrant the king's full attention. There is an expectant expression on the king's face. The lion recalls what the Watcher said to him after their first interaction. You did not ask the correct question. The lion has little patience for such games, but he cannot avoid the feeling that the king's reticence is not due to personal choice. This is a riddle of some sort. There is something actively preventing the king from communicating, lest the correct words are spoken first. It would hardly be the strangest thing the lion has seen in his life. Who are you? He asks. The king's eyes focus on him momentarily, as though fully seeing him for the first time, but then they drift away. There is no other movement or sound, no slump or sigh, but the lion can sense the king's frustration. He sighs again. How may you be healed? The king's eyes flicker back to him, and for a moment the lion hopes he might have hit the mark, but no reply is forthcoming. Instead, the king's gaze manages to communicate a warning, although the reason for that warning is not immediately obvious. The lion frowns in annoyance and opens his mouth to try again. Where the shadows of the king's chair, cast by the light of the fire and the candelabras on the walls, begin to shift of their own accord. They lengthen and deepen, and reach out across the floor towards the lion. He recognizes them then. These are the same dark shapes that swirled in the water beneath the king's boat when he was fishing on the river, and into which the king's blood has been dripping. The same things the Watcher warned would destroy him. The king's gaze sharpens still further into something that conveys both rage and disappointment. The lion takes a step back, uncertain of how to fight a foe which, on the face of it, appears to be nothing but shadow, but he does not get the opportunity to try. The king's eyes flash, and the lion's vision goes white. Then it clears. He is standing in the chambers of the Glory of Terror, and his vox is chiming to alert him that they have arrived at their destination. Hi, Mimikyu! Hi, y'all! How are we all doing tonight? That was chapter 23. I really want to... what do you guys think the right question is? I'm fairly certain that the wounded king is the emperor. You comfy? Good. I'm glad that you're comfy during one of my streams. It's what I hope everyone will be. Yeah. Yeah. maybe? It is a Warhammer 40k question. Who should I destroy? I suppose, but let's be honest, the lion kind of just destroys anything he needs to destroy. It's literally his modus operandi. I'm really happy with some of these miniatures. Yes. These are going to be my Risen Dark Angels. Or, well, Horus Heresy miniatures that I will use in 40k as stuff. See some Space Marine models over there? Yes. Who can I destroy? The lion can destroy everything. So, of course, this is the lion, our lovely protagonist, whom I painted on Friday in a single session. Can you get into focus, please? Liz, focus. Focus. Yeah, no, I love the Horus Heresy models. They look amazing. I'm very happy with them. Focus. There we go. That's a bit more fun. Yeah. I'm very happy with him. I've magnetized his hand so that like we can use the shields for 40k, and he's also magnetized. So in 40k, he has a limited number of uses of the watchers. So these guys are magnetized so they come right off the base. And then his arm comes off, so I can swap him so he has the shield in 40k. And then, for Horus Heresy, I take that off and give him his bare arm. And because he doesn't have the watchers in Horus Heresy, he has a smaller base size. Yeah, the lion is a really cool model. I honestly think this... I mean, I posted pictures on Twitter and in the Discord. I honestly think this is probably my best paint job. It was only a very quick... Like, I'm not the best painter. So I mostly focus on painting things in a time-efficient way. And I try and get them to look as good as they can without spending too much time on them. But I think I've got a pretty good technique now. I tried a lot of new things I'd never done before. Like, the gold is a completely new recipe for me. And I love the effect of it. I didn't actually use any gold paint for that gold. I used silver and yellow. It worked out really, really well. I'm very happy with it. How does this match? There. Lock in. There we go. And it all works. It all works. Shield down. The other things I made. I turned Castellan Crow of the Grey Knights into a librarian. I don't know how much you can see because it's just base coated in black. And then I used basically the Dark Angel's chaplain and some Mark III Space Marine bits and some accessories I had to make, I don't know, a captain, I suppose? A Legion Praetor? I'm not sure. I've got a lot of cool projects planned for Dark Angels in the very near future. And then I spent some time making these guys. These are Deathwing Companions with Tyrannic Greatswords. I'm gonna make some shields for them. And I'm gonna magnetize their bases so that they can go on 40mm bases. And I'm hopefully gonna be able to use them as Blade Guard veterans, or whatever the equivalent is. But also Deathwing Companions in Horus Heresy. And then I got some Mark III despoilers. So, like, you guys voted for me to pick Dark Angels. And it's starting to come to life. I did have a bunch of other ideas for today, though. Trying to get ideas for doing some Emperor's Children. So it's like I'm using a lot of Grey Knight parts for the swords, and I just like the helmets. I think they suit. But I'm thinking there's a bit of me that's like, I could maybe do Emperor's Children as a project when this is done. But there's also a bit of me that wants to do... There's also a bit of me that wants to do, Word Bearers. Mostly because I just like the concept of being the first traitors. I like that. Even though Erebus is a dick and needs to die. But, you know, that's neither here nor there. I think everyone universally understands that Erebus is a dick and needs to die. But I have a soft spot for the fanatics. But yes. Yes. Shall we continue? Did I update Nightbot? I'm pretty sure I updated. I'm confident. Updated Nightbot. Have confidence. Did update that. Okay. So, where were we? Chapter 24. It was a strange feeling to be moving openly after 4 centuries of hiding. This was not to say that I had no qualms about it. My modern brothers and their affiliated chapters were fanatics, whose clutches I had only narrowly escaped on 3 occasions, and whose presence or arrival had sent me fleeing dozens more times over the decades. Even though I now possessed a vid imager on which was a holographic record of Lionel Johnson naming me and instructing anyone who saw it to offer me all the aid in the name of the Emperor and the Lord of the First, I had little doubt that the Dark Angels of this time would only view such a thing as an even greater heresy than whatever they thought I had already committed. None of them would have seen or heard the line before the breaking, so they would have little reason to believe that the message was genuine. Nonetheless, it was a strangely welcome sensation to be once more walking the bridge of an Imperial starship and to be treated with respect by the crew. They did not know the exact nature of my history, but I was a Dark Angel of the Emperor and a companion of a Primarch, and that was enough for them. I had command of the Pax Fortitudinus, a Cobra-class destroyer and one of the smallest warp-capable ships in the Avalis fleet, as just over a mile long. It would normally be deployed in a squadron as part of an order of battle rather than be sent out alone, but my mission was not intended to be a combat one. We had come to Gamma 2, the second moon of Treventum Gamma, a massive gas giant in the Treventum system. Bors said he heard of at least one Fallen who had taken up residence here, although he had not come to verify the stories since the system was reckoned to have little pickings for his pirates. I could tell there was something left unsaid, too, but he did not investigate the business of other Fallen unless they wanted him to. His companions had found him by chance, rather, or by design, but I got the feeling that Bors had not searched for his fallen brothers in case he did not like what he found. I understood this. I had gone for centuries believing that the lion had betrayed us. There had been times after I met Prieval and left his company again when doubt had clawed at me. It was easy to assume that Prieval had fallen into foul practices as a result of some character flaw or desperation at being alone and hunted in an unfamiliar galaxy. But what if I had been the outlier amongst my brothers? What if I had been rendered oblivious to the widespread corruption of those around me back on Caliban by my resentment of the lion and my own exile? The more of my brothers whom I encountered in this future where we were hated fugitives, and so all masks could be dropped, the more likely I was to encounter uncomfortable conclusions. Space Marines know no fear, but that does not mean we are able to face our own preconceptions and prejudices without bias, and nor does it mean that we relish having our mistakes exposed. There is too much baseline human left in our natures for that. The Trevenum system was a mess, and an example of the chaos inflicted on the galaxy after the arrival of the Great Rift. Trevenum Theta, a frozen world on the edge of the system, primarily mined for exotic ices, was endlessly broadcasting a chorus of screams. The Vox signal was quickly routed away from the main console for the well-being of the Vox officers, and was monitored by Magos Torin, one of the ship's tech priests. Magos informed me after 4 hours that Z had detected no exact repetitions, and so had to conclude that it was not on a loop but was a constant and continuous transmission, possibly live. The high atmosphere luxury palaces of Trevenum Epsilon, the system's second gas giant and previously a location of some status, had reportedly been hit so many times by Eldari raiders that the few inhabitants not carried off as slaves had taken their chances with the warp storms. Trevenum Alpha, a rocky planet close to the star, just went silent in the immediate aftermath of the Great Rift's appearance. According to the system's public navigation records, ships which approached it now disappeared from Auxspexes without apparent cause and ceased all transmissions as soon as they entered the orbit of its singular moon. Amidst this pain and misery, the moons of Trevenum Gamma still nominally belonged to the Imperium, although in name only, since they had no real contact with its wider structures since the Great Rift. The inhabitants had, so far as we could determine, kept their heads down and avoided looking too closely at what was occurring elsewhere in the solar system, just in case it came for them too. The Pax Fortitudinus was challenged by the planet's defense fleet, which exuded all the enthusiastic aggression of a fighting force finally faced with something it felt it could definitely destroy if it needed to. However, their belligerence evaporated when I identified myself as Zabriel of the Dark Angels, and emissary of Lion L. Johnson, the returned Primarch. "This is a wonder," exclaimed Captain Rowland, commander of their fleet. He was a rail-thin man, and the dark hollows of his cheeks, as interpreted by the somewhat fuzzy hololith display, gave his face a rather skull-like appearance. "We will inform the Lords immediately." Lord Lanciel was adamant that he be informed as soon as any Space Marines arrived in the system, particularly other Dark Angels. I had several hundred years of practice at keeping my expression blank, at least well enough to fool mortals, but I cannot deny that shock ran through me at the man's words. I was expected to conduct such a search similar to the one that had led me to Kai, Afkar, and Lahok, hunting for secret signs through the streets, as it would be in the great hive cities of Gamma 2, across the different levels. The notion that the object of my search would be known to the inhabitants had not crossed my mind. Of course, the alternative was that this was not one of the Fallen at all, but a modern Dark Angel who had perhaps been stranded here. If he ordered my capture, Pax Fortitudinus would find itself drastically outgunned, and swift though the Cobra class was, it was undoubtedly not swift enough to outrun munitions targeted at its engines. "One of my battle brothers is on Gamma 2? I asked, stalling. I was not aware of this. "2, my lord," Captain Rowland said eagerly. "Lord Lanciel and Gallard graciously took charge of Gamma's defences. 2 Space Marines, and Dark Angels no less, who had assumed positions of authority, much as the Lion had done back on Avalis. That was certainly one explanation why Gamma and its moons had managed to see off Xenos raids, and cult activity appeared not to have flourished out of control. Still, I was now more apprehensive of my mission than I had been. I did not recognize either name, and so I still did not know whether these Space Marines were truly old brothers of mine, or warriors who would wish me captured and interrogated. Even if they were old brothers of mine, what did that mean? Did that mean that they had announced themselves openly? Did they assume no modern Dark Angels would make it here through the warp storms, and so they were safe from persecution? Or did their assumption of command hide a more sinister purpose? cult would have far more freedom in its operations if its activities were sanctioned by the higher local power, after all. Please inform them that I will be landing imminently, and wish to speak with them at once, I said. Captain Roland's expression twitched slightly. I suspect he lost money at cards if he played. My lord, I can communicate your wishes, but we must wait for... I need to wait for nothing, Captain, I said firmly. As I explained to you initially, I am the representative of Lion L. Johnson, Primarch of the Dark Angels, who has returned to us after 10,000 years. He is the Emperor's son, and the gene father of my two brothers and I. Whatever authority they have in this system is eclipsed by his. I signalled the Vox officer who cut the transmission. Captain Montserrat of the Pax Fortitudinus, who was so advanced in her career that she was now nothing more than an ancient body interred within a pod of amniotic fluid, and connected directly to the ship's functions via mind impulse, clicked her vessel's Vox speakers to attract my attention. Her mind voice, as emitted by the speakers, was surprisingly light and lilting. Was such a peremptory missive wise, Lord Sabriel? She asked. I am one ship against many, and a trust is in short supply. My legion has always been one for which trust is in short supply, I told her quietly. In this, we take after our gene father. I do not wish to be kept waiting while my two battle brothers second guess our intentions, and I want them to be in absolutely no doubt, not just that I have invoked the name of the lion, but that I believe in it too. If I hesitate, I show doubt that they will accept his authority, and therefore I suggest myself may not believe in his identity. If I proceed as though there were no question of them refusing me, I make it more likely that they will at least see me in order to understand why I act in such a fashion when we are immensely outgunned. The Vox speakers made a sound which I interpreted as the captain laughing. That is either admirably cunning or admirably direct, my lord. I cannot decide which. In either case, the course is set. We are on approach to Gamma 2, assuming I do not get blown apart between now and our arrival in low orbit. I have instructed Blue Hanger to prepare a shuttle for you. You require an escort? No need, I replied, turning away. These are space marines, after all. If I cannot persuade them to join us, nothing a mortal can say would succeed. The Aquila transport touched down in the primary landing bay of Crown Hive some 15 hours later. We had not come under any fire, although the clipped nature of the transmissions guiding the Pax Fortitudinus and past the weapons platforms and then detailing the course changes my shuttle should make suggested that my manner had ruffled some feathers. There had been no communication from either my battle brothers, though, which I took as a sign that they wished to judge me themselves and in person. The ramp began to lower, and I took stock of myself for the final time. My bolt pistols were holstered, and my chainsword clamped to one hip, while my helmet was in the other, leaving my features visible and vulnerable. I was not approaching these warriors as a supplicant, but neither did I wish to appear as though I were a second away from opening fire. Our legion nearly destroyed itself once through distrust and misunderstanding. I had no intention of reliving that, albeit on a far smaller scale. Now I just had to see what sort of brother awaited me. It was only a moment before my question was answered. The ramp lowered enough for the massive, hulking shoulders of cataphractly tactical dreadnought armor to come into view. And exquisitely decorated armor at that. It was surmounted by a pair of wings above the helmet, and our legion's iconography was everywhere. Feathered wings, swords, skulls, and other more esoteric devices identifying the warrior's rank and specialist knowledge. This was a suit of the very best armor the First Legion had ever manufactured, and the wearer was a giant. His beard was shot with grey, and his right hand was clamped around the hilt of a massive blade as tall as many a mortal human, which rested point down on the deck. That entire arm was bone-coloured, in contrast to the black of the rest of the armour, marking him as someone who had taken a wound meant for another and thereby saved their life. This was a Cenobite of the Inner Circle, one of the most knowledgeable and skilled warriors in all of the Legion, as it had been. Old instincts rose up, even after centuries removed from any sort of command structure. I had to fight myself not to salute him as a superior immediately. The warrior standing next to him was a far more normal sight, clad in Mark III armor. Although the great ablative shield and power sword he carried were less common, the marks of a Breacher Squad veteran, by my guess, although it was always possible that he had simply picked them up as the only weapons available. One of my questions was answered, because there was no doubt that they were from the 31st millennium. The simple nature of their war gear was enough to convince me of that, even without the fact that theirs was the same black as mine rather than the deep forest green of our modern brothers. The next issue was how they would receive me, and whether their rule hid something unsavory. "Well met, brothers," I said, starting down the ramp before it had finished touching the ground. It was a continuation of the tactics I had begun with my message to Captain Rowland, to proceed as though there were no possibility things would not go as I expected them to, and let others deal with that how they would. "I am Zabriel, of the 3rd Company, 15th Chapter. Knight Sergeant Launceal, of the 1st Squad, 24th Chapter," the breacher replied in a sonorous bass, gracing me with a smile. He wore a neatly trimmed beard of tight black curls, in which white was liberally sprinkled, and his brown skin was as deep and rich as his voice. "I am Gallard," the Cenobite said simply. I looked at him, expecting more, but he met my gaze impassively. "Gallard believes that our former ranks are unnecessary," Launceal explained, looking at his companion with amusement, but sparing me a twinkling glance. "They no longer have relevance," Gallard replied, turning to Launceal. And I got the feeling that this was a discussion they had had several times before, which was being voiced mainly for my benefit. "We neither command nor are commanded anymore, and the Legion as we knew it no longer exists." "I was led to believe that you do command people," I put in, eager not to let the conversation get away from me. "I was informed that you command the defences here. Although," I added, "I might expect such commanders to have honour guard, regardless of whether or not it was needed." "We did not know your intentions," Launceal told me, "and you were a destroyer after all. Better not risk the mortals against the tools you might have available." He laughed at my frown. "We never met in person, but we both hunted the Rangda through the warrens of their accursed war moon at Advex Moors. I remember your name and designation from the duty listings." "Launceal has an uncommonly good memory," Gallard put in. "I ran out of phosphex about 400 years ago," I said dryly. "But enough pleasantries, brothers. The lion has returned to us." "So your message said," Gallard acknowledged. "You have any proof of this claim?" For answer, I reached into a belt pouch, pulled out the voxcoder, and pressed the activation rune. The hololith skittered into fitful life, motes of light forming themselves into our Gene-Father. The lion wore a heavy robe, with the cowl thrown back to reveal his lined face, framed by his shaggy hair. He looked like an ancient warrior king, rich with the wisdom of years, but still ferocious in battle. "I am Lionel Johnson, Primarch of the Dark Angels and son of the Emperor. If you see this message, then know that the bearer, Zabriel, is my emissary." The image panned out a little to reveal me standing at the lion's side, armoured but unhelmed. Even with the added bulk of my ceramite, the difference in our stature was immediately noticeable. That was the idea, after all. Not only to prove that I was the message's intended bearer, but also to make it clear that the viewer the true nature of the being speaking to them. I have been absent from the Imperium for 100 centuries, and I have returned to find it in disarray. I do not come to you with any intent to rule, and I have no wish to set myself up as emperor, or as regent, or any other kind of title. My duty is simply to protect humanity against the perils that lurk in the dark. The Lion's Protectorate is centered on the world of Avalis. Any who wish to join us merely need to send word there, and we will come to you if we can. I am aware that my sons are abroad in the galaxy, both openly and in secret. I have no wish to reopen old wounds. I call upon all Space Marines of Dark Angel's lineage to join me, because both I and the galaxy need you now more than ever. If your hearts are true, then a place will be found for you to help in this endeavor. The lion's face grew stern. Be aware that although I do not seek to rule any part of the Imperium, I am still the Lord of the First. Any things my son wished to do in my name, any matters of judgment or censure, would be abandoned until I am able to give a pronouncement on them. Do not think to know my mind on a matter until you have consulted me, my sons. There has been too much misunderstanding already. The message ended, and the hololith sputtered into darkness once more. I could tell immediately that Launceal and Gallard had no doubt as to its veracity. Their expressions were evidence enough of that. Whether it would have convinced my suspicious modern brothers was another matter entirely, but the Lion and I had agreed that, at the very least, if they encountered it, they were likely to send as much of their fleet as they could spare to find him. The Lion was confident that he could then convince them not to obliterate whatever ship or city he was in at the time without at least seeing him in person. I hoped he was correct. I might have found grim amusement in the prospect in the past, until the Lion swore to me that he had already been fired upon unexpectedly by his sons once before, rather than being the initial aggressor. The notion of him now travelling with members of that force and coming under attack from those who had always considered themselves loyal to the Imperium would be a grim joke indeed. But the galaxy had never been a forgiving place. It is him, Launceal breathed, a look of wonder upon his face. It is, Gallard agreed, a frown creasing his brow, though I wonder at the truthfulness of his words. He is a warlord, just as the Emperor was. Perhaps even more so, since the Primarchs were created for that purpose. Why would he not wish to rule, given the state of the Imperium? The Lion was many things, brother, but a liar was not one of them, Launceal argued. He kept secrets, yes, but that is not the same as uttering falsehoods. If he says that he does not intend to become a new emperor, I believe him. And the other part, about his sons, Gallard eyed me appraisingly, that was hardly plainly worded. The Lion chose his words carefully. He did not know to whom I would be showing this message, and he felt to openly mention the schism within our legion might cause a loss of morale among those who do not know of it. Not to mention antagonizing our modern brothers, who have spent 10,000 years attempting to keep that secret and persecute all those involved. And he understands the nature of those who call themselves Dark Angels in this day and age, Gallard asked. He knows of their fervour and vindictiveness. He knows that they will even abandon their own allies to pursue a mere rumour of us, I grimaced. I have explained to him as best I can. Whether he can truly fathom it remains to be seen, but that is what lies at the heart of this message. And the Lion, not his sons, will judge us. That he will do so based on our actions now, not what happened at the breaking. I looked from one of them to the other. Will you come with me? Gallard looked uncertain. We promised these people that we would protect them. And how better to protect them than by going to the Lion and seeking his help? Gamma and its moons cannot survive remaining isolated forever, Gallard. We always knew that either some facet of the Imperium would make contact and we would have to reckon with that, or that we would be overwhelmed by raiders. A joint venture of worlds, a protectorate which does not seek to supplant the Imperium but merely preserve what remains of it. That is more than I could have hoped for before Zabriel's first message reached us. Tell me truly, my brother, do you doubt the Lion could protect this system, even take back those elements of it which are lost, better than we ever could? I do not doubt it at all, Gallad said. But what of us, Lanciel? The Lion was never mercurial in his temper. Do not pretend you are concerned for your own welfare, Lanciel said, with a laugh. I know you better than that. Gallad is far too noble, he added to me, his eyes twinkling. He would protect me from all harm if he could. You would do the same, Gallad said stolidly. That shield of yours has taken as much defending me as it has defending you. Well, you make such a large target, and a slow-moving one at that, Lanciel said, then sobered. But truly, brother, I can see no reason why we should not go with Zabriel. Even if the lion still seeks revenge on us as individuals for our perceived misdeeds, that is no reason to deny the people of Trevenham the protection a Primarch can offer. We only ever wished to serve humanity, and this is the best way that we can do that, rather than remaining as lords of our tiny kingdom and waiting for doom to find us. Gallad sighed and placed one hand fondly on Lanciel's pauldron. If that is your wish, then I will go with you, he looked at me. What of our other brother? Did you wish to seek him out as well? I frowned. Other brother? I had been told rumours of that one Dark Angel was here, not two, and Captain Rowland spoke only of the two of you, not more. Beverdan, Lanciel said, by way of explanation. I found him when I was searching for Gallad, decades ago, but he was always a melancholy one. He has completely forsaken battle, and when we arrived here, he decided to go live out as a hermit in the Umbran Mountains. We have visited him on a few occasions, but he seems happy enough, but entirely uninterested in larger events. Lion wished me to take his message to as many of his sons as I could find, I said. I would be remiss not to do this. We will arrange you a transport to go and find him, while we prepare the mortals here for our departure and explain our reasoning, Gallad said. But Zabriel, you should not go there expecting success. Beverdan is stubborn and will not be swayed. I am not going to attempt to sway him, I replied. I go with the same offer and message I made you, no more and no less. The decision to accept or refuse will be his own. End chapter 24. This is a very different section to what we've done. I'm not ending. I just want to close the book for a moment. Hi, Logan. Hi, Hinton. Thank you so much for the 9 months. I smell like a baka. Yes, love me, really. I know, Hinton. You're a sweet bean. How are you all doing? I really like this book. Probably my favourite book I've read in a long time. I'm going to continue in very shortly. I just want to have a drink. This coffee is doing nothing for me. Your favourite author is giving away all his ebooks for free. Drop that in the Discord in the cool shit section. Make it so. "10 years of writing." Oh my god. Who is it? Who's your favourite author? Thank you, Raz. Will White. I know that name. I don't know why I know that name, but I know that name. I definitely know that name. Yeah. Yeah. I need to stretch. No one saw that. No one saw that. Nothing is broken. Everything is fine. Can't believe I did that. Stupid cable. How dare. Please don't clip that. Bleh. Bleh. Okay. I think we shall continue, shall we? Have a sip. Actually, I want some. Yes. I'm feeling a bit tired today, so we probably won't let ourselves have another super lengthy one more chapter become 6 chapters thing like we did last time. I think we're in a bit more of a more character focused than action focused segment of the book. It's nice though. It's nice getting. There's so many characters. It's very hard to keep track of everyone, but it's nice. I'm enjoying this. It's nice getting a different kind of perspective on things. Right. Chapter 25. Echo Station is a dark speck in interstellar space, lurking at the edge of the Cordova Nebula, and consists of 5 extended arms around a globular core. The Lion can see no obvious reason why such an installation has been placed here, far from any planets for it to guard, but that is not the only source of his uncertainty. This construction does not look like it was made by humans, he states, although it is of no other design I can recognize either. And we destroyed enough different Xenos civilizations in the Great Crusade that it is surprising we do not know it, Bors agrees over the vox from the Honor's Edge. But it is true, my lord. Echo Station does not seem quite human. Still, the scale and layout is similar enough for humanity to use it. The Lion grimaces. And does this not trouble you? We are all damned in the eyes of the Imperium anyway, Bors replies, honestly. I could have turned myself over to the tender mercies of my modern brothers, but I chose to stay alive. Out here, that means using what you have available. He pauses for a moment, then speaks again. Without Echo Station, my ships would not be operational today. Then you would not have had a far harder. Would you not have had a far harder fight against that chaos-filtered Avalis, my lord? Kai tuts beside him. The Lion sighs. He does not like it, but he has to accept the logic of Bor's argument. The Emperor wanted the galaxy scoured, clean of Xenos civilizations, because he knew that any of them could and would be a threat to humanity's domination. And the artifacts might pose just as great a threat as the beings themselves. However, the Emperor has, as any navigator could tell you, is not here. And besides, it is fair to say that the Dark Angels were not unfamiliar with Xenos technology. The holds of the Invincible Reason contained some of the most dangerous relics from the times of Old Night, to be used by the Dreadwing in case of extreme necessity. And the Lion knows well enough that not all of the weapons his father gifted him were entirely of human origin. There was a difference, though. Those artifacts had been approved for use by the Master of Mankind. And what was the Lion to do? The Emperor's vision of the galaxy never came about, having founded on the reefs of Horus's treachery. All that remained is for the Lion to step out of his father's shadow, make the decisions he thinks are best, here and now, and with that logic, and with him similarly absent, it is unsurprising if his own sons have taken the same step. What I would not give for another loyal brother of mine, he mutters. This is a heavy burden to bear alone. Even Russ, Kai asks. The Lion thinks about it for a moment. Even Russ. The Wolf King had a savage simplicity about him, which would be almost welcome now, although doubtlessly infuriating. The Emperor sent the Space Wolves when he wanted to make an example of an enemy that would linger in the memories of all, and he sent the first when he wanted no record of the enemy to remain. Russ might not be right about anything, but he would be certain that he was right, and that could at least throw the available options into stark relief. The Vox crackles. But it is not Boars. They are being hailed by the station itself, and the deep voice that emerges does not sound happy. An impression only heightened by the chiming of alerts as the Glory of Terror's systems register various weapon systems locking onto it. Boars, you sump-swilling wretch, the Vox rumbles. If you have brought the hell's damned Imperium down upon us. Is that you, Gawain? Boars cuts in. You're not still sore about last time, surely? That was a full shipment of supplies. Enough, the Lion says into what is rapidly turning into an argument. Boars, you did not tell me that your piratical exploits had extended to the very place you were guiding me. There is a momentary pause from the box. Who is speaking? Says Echo Station. This is Lion L. Johnson, he searches his memory. You would be Knight Sergeant Gawain, if I recall correctly. You lost your arm in the second Carcassonne engagement. Lion L. Johnson is dead and a traitor to boot. It takes a lot for a Space Marine to be shaken, but Gawain's voice is unsteady. And I was raised to Knight Captain by Lord Luther during the exile on Caliban. I am no more dead than you are, Knight Captain Gawain, the Lion says firmly. And I would argue no more of a traitor either. You know I would not have come back without good reason, Gawain, Bors interjects. What he says is true, impossible though it seems. At least get your brothers together and meet him. Fox is silent for several long seconds. The Lion waits patiently. Words can always be added to a situation, but they can never be removed once uttered. Very well. One shuttle only, and Bors, you and your pirates had better stay well back. The angles are wrong. That is the Lion's first impression of the hangar bay once he has exited the shuttle. There is something very inhuman about the design, although it is far subtler dissonance than the nightmarish interiors of Crave ships, or the structures of the Rangda. If anything, that makes it more disturbing. Something which is truly alien can be rejected out of hand, whereas something which is nearly but not quite the same as what the eye expects draws attention to itself again and again. There are 7 of his sons waiting for him. Whether out of habit or deliberate choice, they are drawn up in something of a close-to-parade form, helmets in place, where the minor discrepancies tug at his eye, in the same manner the surroundings do. A missing company marking there, a scavenged armor plate there, or a weapon that was never part of the First Legion's extensive and varied armory. 5 of them wear First Legion black, and one on the far right is in the white of an apothecary, and the many-limbed figure at the rear is in the rust-red and servo harness of a tech marine. The Lion is not wearing his armor. It is damaged, after all, but he has fealty on his belt. Kai and Lahok flank him, the swordsman to his left, and the Red Whisper to his right. While behind them come the Lion Guard. Mikia refused to let him go on this mission without them, after hearing of the combat on the bridge of the Lunar Night. The Lion would have preferred to send them back to Kamarth on one of the ships that his fledgling protectorate had sent there to re-establish contact, but he knew that such a statement would only induce pleading from the Kamarthans, and he has no wish to see them reduced to that. He took them from their world without meaning to. The least he can do is let them keep their dignity. Still, no one has their hands on a weapon, including the Lion Guard. Even Lahok has his plasma gun slung away. Bors got them here just as he promised, but his economy with the truth about his relationship to his estranged brothers on Echo's station means that the Lion is walking into a more hostile situation than he previously anticipated. It is good to see all of you, the Lion says. The statement is more true than he expected. He found Zabriel alone and guarding refugees on a tainted world, Kai, Lahok, and Afkar hiding in the slums of a city, Bors and his crew predating on whatever ships they could find out in the void. The notion of some of his sons making a home of sorts for themselves is an oddly pleasing one, even if the home is an alien place. and it is a far cry from the life of war for which they were created. The Lion can see baseline humans peering around the edges of the doorways that open to the hangar, looking on with wonder. Serfs and servants, or equals in this strange place? Are you here to kill us? Asks the leftmost Dark Angel. The Lion looks at them. He holds a melter gun, but does not sound either angry of the notion of dying or eager about the prospect of a fight. Again, adds another, a second from the right. The Lion has already marked him as Knight Captain Gawain by his bionic arm, but the voice would have given him away in any case. I'm not here to kill anyone, he says, and he speaks of what he has learned, of the treachery of Luther and Astellan and others allied to them, but of how he has since found sons who he believes had no part or knowledge in the attack. He speaks of Kamarth and Avalis, and he speaks of his purpose. If you wish me to, I will leave you here in peace. He finishes. I will attempt to make those sons of mine who wear the mantle of Dark Angels in this time do the same. The only exception is if you prey upon humanity and continue to do so, he adds, thinking of Bors. The warrior at the rear steps forward, the clanking of metal foot upon metal hull, and then removes his helmet. The Lion sees half of his head is metal too. The tech marine of whom Bors spoke is ancient. The remaining flesh of his face is pallid and sagging. It has been 737 years since the breaking of Caliban for me, the tech marine says, with a wheeze in his voice which speaks at least partially artificial airway or lungs. I'm Ectorial, son of Caliban, an adept of Mars, and I can tell you that the galaxy is a worse place than ever, Lord Lion. The Imperium is wretched, short-sighted, superstitious, and hateful, and it clings to tenets it does not understand in pursuit of goals it cannot remember and will never realize. Why should we protect what is left of it? The Imperium is by all accounts gravely flawed, but many of the people within it bear no responsibility for that, the Lion replies firmly. They are beset on all sides by ravening Xenos we failed to exterminate, and by foul powers to which our brother legions, and indeed some of your own battle brothers, enslaved themselves. Did we leave these mortals to reap the consequences of their forebears' decisions, and the failures of the Legionis Astartes and their Primarchs? He extends a hand towards the humans lurking by the doors, and they recoil, despite him being 100 yards away from them. You have humans with you here, and I presume they receive your protection, as you protect this station. Why not extend your boundaries? Because they are scared, Kai says, stepping forward. The Lion turns to him, a harsh rebuke upon his lips, but it is too late. The tense stillness of the standoff has been shattered, and the Dark Angels of Echo Station are raising their weapons. Kai, however, appears unconcerned. I know the feeling, he announces, spreading his arms. I felt it too, back in the days of the Great Crusade. I was part of something huge. I had my brothers around me. I knew my purpose. Even when we were exiled on Caliban, I felt that connection. More so, even, because I knew that there was so much good that I could be doing if I were simply allowed to get out there and do it. He drops his hands to his sides, and then the breaking happened. The storm that threw me through space and time, and I ended up alone, without a purpose. Even then, I found a pair of companions. We had no plan other than to keep our heads down and survive. How could we three make a difference in the galaxy? He points at the Lion. But now we can, brothers. Our Gene Father says he has no wish to rule, and I believe him. But you must realize that everywhere he goes, humanity will cling to him like a drowning person to a flotation device. They will hang off his words and take his statements as law, even if it is only a handful of star systems. That is still trillions of lives that the Lion will be protecting. You have the choice of joining him, finding a new purpose, standing next to other warriors, and having no enemies other than those who seek to destroy humanity. or refusing him, remaining here and waiting for a passing Xenos fleet to grant you a meaningless death, or to finally be captured and tortured by the unforgiven. There is a few moments of silence. I would not have been sad if you had never come back out of that warp storm, Kai, the Dark Angel holding the melter gun, with considerably more feeling than was in his voice before spoke. Nor are you, Kuziel, Kai replies with a sniff. But I am speaking the truth, and I suspect you know it. And what of your other companion, my Lord Lion? Ectorael asks. The mechanical eyes clicks and whirs as it focuses on Lahok. Does he have similar eloquence? I do not, Lahok rasps. I do as the Lion wishes me to, and that is an end to it. Brother, that sounds like an old injury, says another of Echo Station's Dark Angels. This one in the white plate of an apothecary. Does it require attention? It does not, but Lahok does not remove his battle plate within the sight of others. The Lion interrupts him. But we thank you for your concern. Does he not? Ectoriel says. And the half of his face, still capable of movement, settles into the considering expression. And this does not strike you as strange, my lord? I suspect many of my sons have developed quirks since the breaking, the Lion says levelly. I will not condemn without proof. Lahok has pledged himself to me and given me no reason to doubt his word. I'll extend the same trust to any of you. There is a slight shift of stances among the Echo Station garrison, and the Lion can tell his words have struck something. His legion always prided themselves on being the very best, the first, the template to which the rest of the Legionis Astartes had to follow. He wondered what insecurities have developed during their respective long times of relative solitude, when they could not influence the galaxy. Kai is correct, he suspects. There is fear here, but not fear of death or pain, those things that a Space Marine will face unflinchingly. It is a fear that they have lost the only thing that told them who they were, and that any attempt to reclaim it will see those fears confirmed. My sons, he says, as gently as he can, you and I spent centuries doing what we were told. Now I simply wish to do what is right, and I need your help to do it. For as long as you are willing to give me that help. Who are you fighting? Asks a new voice. An assault marine, the Lion notices, with an ancient jump axe still attached to his back. Currently, our most prominent enemy appears to be a chaos force going by the name of the 10,000 Eyes. The assault marine steps forward. Knight Lamore, my Lord Lion, you are hunting Seraphax's filth, then I am with you. Lion frowns. Seraphax? I fought a boarding party who shouted that name. That is their overall commander. Knight Captain Seraphax, as he was, Ectorial growls. One of Luther's favourites back on Caliban. I have not met him since the breaking, but I have seen his handiwork, and that of his followers. He is a traitor, that one. To everything the Emperor taught us. You will have my aid. The Lion smiles, and it is only broadens when Gawain steps forward as well. Not alone, brother. He is not alone, Lamore says, turning to address Gawain. Did you not hear me pledge myself even before he spoke? You will be alone the moment you fly off at the enemy. Hot-headed. Gawain begins. However, the Lion's combead chimes with an urgent message. This has better be important, Captain. Give me, my lord, but it is... Melia the Astropath has just received a distress call. The Lion bares his teeth. From where? End of chapter 25. Thank you, Raz. Thank you for sharing. I will check it out after stream. How many chapters are there? We're on chapter 26. We're about to start chapter 26. That's the afterword. Epilogue. 33. 33 is the last chapter. We're on 26. What time is that? Okay, I think we'll do one more chapter. for tonight. Next time we won't be able to stream another reading session next week just because I'll be getting back from LARP on Monday. So I won't want to do a 6-hour commute and then a stream right after. So we'll definitely probably finish this book maybe in the next stream, maybe the stream after that. Yeah. I don't know. There's some chunky chapters coming up there. Okay. Have a sip. Chapter 26. The Umbaran Mountains were starkly beautiful, and arrived there at their second dawn, which was, by their nature, also noon. The range stood just where Gamma 2, which was tidally locked to its parent planet, emerged from Trevenum Gamma's shadow, and into the full power of the overhead sun. I had seen many strange sights during my centuries travelling the galaxy, but the Trevenum star slowly rising above the enormous dark sphere of Gamma, its uppermost atmosphere, backlit by the glowing of the star's rays to illuminate the rugged, rocky landscape of the second moon to the star's rays, was certainly one of the more memorable, at least among the events which had not directly threatened my life. Some of the Blood Angels had made art back in the days of the Great Crusade. I wondered whether the spectacle might be some sort of thing that would have inspired them. I also wondered whether any of their descendants still did the same, and if not, what that said. Had my modern brothers and cousins lost touch with their human origins, despite still being taken from human stock, and was that a failing? Or had we, the originals, clung to an identity we were never meant to hold on to, rather than accepting our role as inhuman weapons? The transport I had been assigned was an RE-45, a civilian shuttlecraft, which touched down in a rocky valley. I could tell that the crew were none too impressed at their assignment or their destination. Space Marines unsettled them, and the hydraulic landing gear was making whining noises of complaint about the uneven ground, but they did their jobs quietly and efficiently. I set off up the slopes and left them to their craft, but I think they were grateful for my absence. Despite needing to wait around in the middle of nowhere for my return, the mountain ranges and areas where the altered nature of Space Marine physiology in particular is particularly noticeable. We are not particularly nimble, as a rule, and although our power armor boosts our strengths and actions, it also greatly increases our weight. Rocks dislodge far more easily, and scree slopes are virtually impassable. On the other hand, we are more or less tireless, and sheer blunt strength sometimes provides the tools to conquer climbs that even an experienced mortal mountaineer would balk at. What I mean to say is that I trudged upwards towards the location I had been given for Beveden's retreat, without any particular ability or grace, but at a steady, slogging speed which made me feel somewhat like a member of the Death Guard. I had already discarded the brief aesthetic appreciation I had for the scenery, and was now firmly back into regarding it as terrain, something to analyse and use to my advantage, noting the best routes and potential hazards, and always being aware of the points from which a sniper could gain a good vantage point on me. I was not expecting enemies here, as such, but no Space Marine ever disregards the possibility. Bevedan apparently lived in a cave on a high slope that faced west, catching the long afternoon. There was a rough path up, although I was unsure whether or not it was made by humans or animals. I started a pair of cloudhoppers, as the locals apparently called them, bird and bipedal beasts about 1.5 feet high, which chittered angrily at me through the sharp teeth before leaping off the cliffside and catching the robust mountain wind beneath outstretched flaps of skin to glide away to safety. There were signs of larger denizens too. The sandy dirt bore the multitudinous pockmarks of something with many chitinous legs that splayed at least a yard apart, and I saw the deep, heavy print of what I assumed was some kind of mammalian predator, judging by the pads and the faint tips of claws. In my years on Caliban, I had grown more accustomed than I would have liked with its cursed forests and the various biological dangers that lurked within them. I had some familiarity with hunting and tracking. However, it was more mundane tracks which next caught my eye. Some half an hour later, the distinctive imprints of ceramite boots like my own, going in the same direction. A space marine had come this way, and not too long before, judging by how distinct the prints were. Even as the wind eroded the edges of them. I was glad for this evidence, as my ascent was not in vain. Because although I did not doubt Lanciel and Galad's honesty, it seemed that this Bevedan was somewhat eccentric, to say the least. And I had no guarantee that he was still where they had last known him to be. Gamma 2's orbit of its planet, and therefore its day, was somewhat in the 40-hour region, so the sun was only halfway to the horizon by the time I emerged from a thicket of the gnarled, stunted trees, which appeared to be the only form of sizable vegetation up here, and came into sight of the cave that was my destination. A few terraced ledges of thin soil in which some form of crops had been planted suggested that Bevedan had turned to agriculture to support himself up here, far from anyone with whom he could trade. But given that very isolation, with whom could I hear him talking? My helmet's audio receptors picked up the faintest edges of something that I would identify as a Space Marine's voice, though I could not yet make out any words. I made my way closer, trying to hear what was being said in order to gain some idea of what I would be walking into. Lanciel and Galad told me that Bevedan had forsaken combat, but that did not mean he might not react violently to the arrival of an armoured stranger. Once more I found myself wondering how to approach a situation, and deciding that, against the habits of my legion and the instincts that had kept me safe for centuries, being direct and open might serve me best. The loud and obvious newcomer might or might not be welcome, but he is unlikely to be mistaken for an assassin. Bevedan, I shouted, still far enough away that I could not make out the individual words being spoken. A brother wishes to speak with you. When the echoes of my own voice died away, I realized in the aftermath that I had perhaps been incautious. But the tales I had heard of loud noises in mountains, sparking rockfall or snowslide were not borne out on this occasion. I could hear that the speech from within the cave had also stopped. A black armoured figure stepped out a few moments later, its bolter held in both hands, but with the muzzle pointed down and to the side. "Brother Bevedan?" I asked, but I also realized that at once that it could not be. Lanciel and Galad had not mentioned whether Bevedan still habitually wore his armor plate, but they had been very clear about one thing, namely that he lacked his left hand and had no bionic prosthesis to replace it. This warrior, however, held his bolt gun in two hands. This was a stranger. I did not draw my bolt pistols, since to do so was to invite being shot. If I decided I needed to kill this warrior, then I would draw and work from there, rather than risk sparking an unnecessary confrontation. Side-switched. The lion had asked me to take his message to any and all of his sons, and the iconography on the black armor told me that this was one of my brothers. Another shape emerged from the cave, one-handed and clad only in simple cloth. This, then, was Bevedan. He was blonde-haired and pale-skinned, with eyes of entirely colourless grey, and a sober aspect that bordered on the morose. He pursed his lips when he saw me, an expression of rueful consideration. I got the impression that my presence was not immediately welcome, but I wondered what I had interrupted. And who might you be? Beverdan called to me. He beckoned with the stump of his forearm to come closer. His other hand held no weapon. Come closer, since you have come this far. I am Zabriel, I replied, walking towards them. I attempted to give the impression that my attention was fixed on Beverdan, but I was in fact monitoring my other brother for any indication of hostility, as I had no doubt he was doing to me. I come with a message from the lion. Beverdan glanced at the armoured brother beside him. From the lion? Indeed, I replied. It is for all of us. So that includes you, brother, I continued, openly addressing the mysterious warrior for the first time. I did not know another would be here. What is your name? He reached up and removed his helmet, revealing features I recognized. Zabriel, it has been a long time. I frowned and did the same. Baelor? I heard the Dark Angels got you. They were on my tail in the Nephilim sector, Baelor said, nodding, but they did not have the stomach for the pursuit. We had not known each other well on Caliban, but Baelor and I had been at least passing acquaintances. I had sparred with him in the practice cages on occasion, and our respective squads had shared purging missions once. One I now look back on with some distaste, as I no longer had any certainty that the traitorous lords we had been sent to eliminate had been anywhere near as dangerous or disloyal as Astellan's ordered had made them out to be. Baelor had aged nearly as much as I had, from what I could judge, but appeared otherwise unchanged from the solid, dependable warrior I had known him to be. The lion's return is a grand claim, Beverdan said. It is, I agreed, but I have proof of it. I produced the Vox Coder, and played the same message that I had delivered to Lanciel and Gallard. My two brothers reacted very differently, although not obvious to those unfamiliar with our kind. Beverdan's lips were pinched and his nostrils flared, as some strong emotion gripped him, but reading the nature of that emotion was beyond me. Other than it was certainly not unbridled joy. Baelor, on the other hand, his face was completely blank, as unreadable as a fortress wall designed by the Imperial fists. It set my hackles rising, because what son of the lion would see and hear this message and not feel something? Whether it was incredulity, relief, or rage, I could have understood him falling to his knees and crying out to the hololith for forgiveness, spitting at it in disgust, abusing me as a worm-ridden liar, peddling falsehoods, or anything in between. No, Baelor felt something, but he wished to hide it, and that instantly garnered him my mistrust. It sounds like him, as I remembered his voice, Beverdan conceded. His speech somewhat halting, and we survived. Might he not have too? What I find harder to believe is that he let you live, given our treachery. And now he sends this obtusely worded message to suggest that he bears no grudge. He shook his head. If this is indeed the lion, I struggle to believe that he is doing anything other than attempting to gather as many of us together as possible, to execute us all at once. Execute us with what? I demanded. His mortal followers? He has perhaps a dozen of us rallied to his banner. More if he has any success since I have last seen him. But he is old now, Beverdan. I saw him kill 5 Terminators of the 10,000 eyes. It is true, but it cannot be long before we would have been able to overwhelm him if he tried to turn on us. I broke off as Beverdan had looked at Baelor and was not looking away. Is something amiss? You did not say that you had tried to kill the lion, Baelor, Beverdan said. And there was a dangerous undertone beneath the calmness of his voice. You might have mentioned that when you were here to recruit me. I considered his words and drew the obvious conclusion. Baelor, I said, whom do you serve? I serve whom I have always served, Baelor replied. I could feel the tension coming off him. Knight Captain Seraphax, who was my commanding officer throughout the Great Crusade, and during the exile on Caliban, and the warlord of the 10,000 Eyes, Bevedan added. He raised his hand. Brothers, I came here to escape conflict and keep my mind calm. Please do not raise your weapons. My days with the Order of the Pentacle are long past, but I would wager that I can still draw on the breath of the warp before either of you could pull a trigger. And what is more, I will do so. I froze. Launciel and Galad had not mentioned that Bevedan had once been of the Librarius. Perhaps they had never known. That might explain his desire for solitude. At any rate, my limited understanding of psychers was that some of them could find the presence of other minds thoroughly unpleasant, even with training. You are with the 10,000 Eyes? I asked Baelor. It was hard for me to countenance. Luthor or Astellan as traitors, perhaps. They had been high command figures, far removed from me. But I had not known either well. There were sinister rumours about other brothers too, but few and far between. Any word of our presence was a lead for our modern kin to chase, and never a name I recognised. We had been a large legion, split into different fleets that only rarely came together in the name of a larger war, so there were countless Dark Angels from my time whose names I had never heard and faces I had never seen. Baelor, though, he was someone I had known, and it was hard to reconcile that with an allegiance to the gods of chaos. What was more, I had faced servants of the ruinous powers before, and Baelor bore little resemblance to them. He had removed most of the identification marks from his armour. Else I might have recognised him before, but his battle plate bore none of the foul glyphs I had come to associate with chaos, let alone the twisting and malformation. Even his face looked much the same as I remembered it, allowing for the aging that had found us all. I am with Seraphax, Baelor said. His tone was bored, as though he were simply repeating the truth. But I could sense the tension within him. He was not certain whether I would risk Bevedan's intervention and attack him anyway. And let me assure you, brothers, Seraphax has no wish to kill the lion, if indeed he has returned. The boarding party who attempted it disobeyed his direct order. Something slotted into place for me. You commanded that cruiser, the one that did not engage. Throne of Terror, Baelor. You are allies with filth like those berserkers, and you hold to it, even though you have heard the lion's words and seen his image. I have seen and heard something you claim to be the lion, Baelor said. I can understand why you do so. With the galaxy as it is, why would humanity not flock to a mythical figure arisen out of the past? It would allow you to exert some measure of control once more, and attract a lot of attention, and with attention will come our little brothers, I pointed out. Do you honestly think that we, would do this unless we were right? I have avoided the Dark Angel's knives for 400 years. If I wished to hand myself over to them now, then there would have been easier to do it than raise up a false Primarch. You assume that our little brothers are even still alive, Baelor said, with a snort. There are 1,000 callow youths adrift in a galaxy which they have suddenly found is even less hospitable than they thought. There is nothing to say that they have not been swallowed up by it. I thought about it for a moment, but shook my head. Whatever differences divide us from our modern kin, they inherited our stubbornness. They might be wounded or reduced in number, but they would not have fought the galaxy's darkness for 10,000 years, only to succumb to it now. They will not deign to die unless they know that all of us have been killed first, at the very least. I am far from the worst thing abroad in this galaxy, but they were not stubborn enough to capture me, Baelor sneered. They might bear our name, but we fought horrors which they can only imagine. I gestured to the sky above and the galaxy in general. I suspect they are catching up. But I think there is little point wasting words with you, Baylor. I have seen what the 10,000 eyes do, and I cannot imagine that you would turn your face from them, although I wish that you would, and ask the lion for his mercy. His mercy? Baylor snapped. What right does he have to grant me anything after he betrayed us? He did no such thing, Beverdan said. We both looked at him. His expression was even more morose than it had been. Neither of you were senior enough to know, I suppose. The lion was never to be allowed to land on Caliban. Some of the commanders feared he had turned from the Emperor, and had returned to claim all the resources he had us accumulate while he was gone, only to use his largely undamaged legion to overwhelm his remaining brothers and take control of what was left of the Imperium. A few, I think, feared that he would make what he would make of them when he returned. I never broke the Edict of Nicaea on Caliban, but I know others who did, and there were always rumours that some had sought refuge in rituals and practices which the significance was not understood at the time. Some, I have no doubt, had decided that Horus had a point. But mainly we were angry. Angry that we had been cast aside and abandoned, and angry that even amidst a galactic war, we had not been trusted enough to help. I stared at him in shock. Then Caliban did fire first. We fired on our own Primarch. A Primarch who watched the entire Imperium fall rather than let us fight, Beverdan said sharply. Horus used every asset at his disposal to bring the Emperor low. The lion left 30,000 Astartes sitting on a backwater rock. He looked at me directly in the eye. So yes, we fired upon the invincible reason, because we knew that we had been created for one thing, warfare. And yet the greatest war humanity had ever known, we were ignored. Our Gene Father was either a traitor or an incompetent, or he viewed us to be at least one of the two things. How could there be reconciliation after that? I was staggered. I had felt resentment during the exile, of course, but how did resentment lead to attempting to obliterate your own battle brothers? What was more, I could see that Baylor was going through the exact same process as I, or indeed a worse one. I had at least come to terms with the notion that the lion believed he had not attacked us first, and that there might have been treachery in my own higher ranks. I could not accept my Primarch's belief as genuine, even if I did not know the truth. Yet Baylor had clearly believed for all this time that he was wronged, and that there was one of our old battle brothers telling us that yes, the attack on the lion's fleet was not only deliberate, but premeditated. If misplaced resentment could lead to such treachery against your brothers 10,000 years ago, it could certainly lead to treachery against humanity here and now. I looked back to Baylor, hoping that this might be what it took to rebalance his humours. You see now, brother, the lion left us in exile, it is true, and perhaps he did not fully trust us, but he did not initiate the battle which saw Caliban destroyed and us scattered. We did that. And yet he is willing to put such things aside. Humanity still has hope, certainly while a being such as the lion exists. Why not leave your path and join them? For a moment, I thought that my appeal might work. Baylor's cheek twitched, and he looked uncertain. However, then, his doubt was replaced with stiffness. Humanity has hope, but I am afraid that it will not come from anything you do, Zabriel, even your lion, if your lion were the real thing. Do not give me that, I interrupted him. Do not deny him. You know he is real. I can hear it in your voice. Even if he were real, he and you are clinging to outmoded thinking, Baylor shouted. Have you not seen the galaxy, Zabriel? Humanity can huddle around the few fires it has left and wait for the embers to flicker out and die. Or it can take a radical new course. Worship of the Chaos Gods, you mean? I asked, not bothering to hide my disdain. I've seen what happens to their followers, and death is the better outcome. Baylor shook his head. You think too small. Seraphax would be able to explain it better, but he is not here. I was never his equal with words. He looked at Verdan. Will you come? I know you will make a powerful ally, but more importantly, I suspect that you could find purpose in Sarafax's designs. Let him speak with you, brother. Bevadan shook his head. If Sarafax desires my presence so much, then he should have come himself. I settled here for a reason. I will not leave it for vague promises of undefined hope. It was good to see you, brother, but I will not be going with you. Balor's lip twitched, and he turned to me. I know better than to think you will listen to me, Zabriel, but you judge too quickly. Sarafax does what he needs to in order to achieve his goals, just like our Legion always has. Do not assume that those who fight for him are his allies, as you understand the term. Emperor, help me. I wanted to believe him. Balor himself could have been any one of my brothers, older, somewhat battered, and with inevitable weariness that afflicts even a space marine once they have been alone and hunted for a century or two. There was nothing about him to suggest he was tainted by the powers of the warp, and yet I had seen the forces of which he was a part. To think that anyone could fight alongside such perversions of nature and not become corrupted was foolishness, at least, and more likely willful ignorance. I will not fight for Sarafax as an ally or otherwise, I said. And I fear that the next time our paths cross, brother, we will no longer be sparring. That will be interesting, Balor said carefully, but it will be a shame. In that case, I will take my leave of you both. He replaced his helmet and trudged past me, without any further acknowledgement. I expected some form of trick or attack, but he simply carried on walking back down the track up which both he and I had come before, till he reached a knot of twisted trees and disappeared from sight. I had expected something more dramatic from a servant of chaos, I commented to Bevadan, as much to break the silence as anything else. Not that he would just walk off. Where is he going, in any case? He has a ship in orbit, Bevadan said. I presume he has a shuttle somewhere. I looked at him. He waved away my concern. Be at ease, brother. Balor knows better than to aggravate Launceal and Galad by having his ship fire on yours. They will have allowed his presence on the understanding that he starts no fights. They knew he was here? I exclaims. They allowed him to land? My suspicion is about the pair of them, which had receded after meeting them, came flooding back. He is our brother, is he not? Bevadan asked. We might have disagreements, but when it comes down to it, we still struggle to kill each other. Launceal and Galad would not tolerate a Chaos fleet arriving in orbit, but a single vessel captured by another of the Fallen. So long as he makes no trouble, they do not order their defences to engage him. By the same token, they know that whatever other powers might cast their attention towards the Trevenum Gamma and its moons, the 10,000 Eyes would be among the last to come as enemies. I wanted to argue, but I could not. I had killed servants of the Dark Powers before, but I did not raise my hand to Priavel despite his practices. I simply left him and travelled alone once more, unpleasant though he had been. There was still a bond between us. At that point there had been no one else I knew within the galaxy who understood who I was, and what I was experiencing. And the same held true for him. Indeed, there was no one else we knew within the galaxy who could even be allowed to know, lest our lives be endangered. I do not know if Bevadan's threat of psychic action would have stayed my hand if Balor had not been one of my brothers. If Bevadan himself had not been one of my brothers, I do not know if I would have tried to kill him first for interfering. But I was always more willing to listen to my brothers, to reason with them, to try to find some way in which we need not come into conflict. Or at least not yet. Perhaps this is a flaw in us. Or perhaps this is a flaw we so rarely seek any other option. I turned to Bevadan. I presume your answer to me will be the same, that if the lion wanted you, he should have come himself, especially since you tried to kill him once before. Beverdan's expression shifted, and I worried that, although I had spoken the plain truth, I'd provoked him into attacking me. However, he merely sighed. Baylor did not just come to try and recruit me to the 10,000 eyes, you know. He came to warn me of the rumors abroad in the galaxy that the lion had returned. He wished me to be on my guard against those who might seek to use them to manipulate me. I nodded as understanding came. And when you heard that the 10,000 eyes had already fought the lion, I suspected that Baylor was not telling the whole truth, which in fairness, I had already guessed. He gave me a smile, though it was lacking in real humour, as was the rest of his face. We are the Dark Angels, after all. The Alpha Legion liked to think that they were masters of deception by all assuming the same name, but we guarded secrets that would have stripped their minds bare. An open and honest Dark Angel is a rare thing in is as rare a thing as a civilized space wolf. I snorted a laugh. A fair assessment. When the lion returned to Caliban, I was angry, Beverdan said. Do not know if I felt that it was right to do as we did, but I was surrounded by others who seemed to think so, and I certainly did not feel strongly enough about it to raise my voice against them. I followed orders, I suppose, which as a soldier was all I was supposed to do. Things feel different now, I ventured cautiously. Rather than having him placed above us by the Emperor, this time the lion is asking for our help. Beverdan was silent for a while. You made the same offer to Launceal and Galad? I did. And what did they say? They are coming with me, I told him. They want the protection the lion offers for Trevenum. And Launceal said yes, so Galad is going with him, Beverdan said. I nodded. I regret what I was a part of, Beverdan said, after a few more seconds. It might have been difficult in those days to work out what was truly right, but I should have known that what we did was wrong. Even if the lion had turned, had all of those with him, and we called down such ruin on our own, including those who had no concept of what we had done, or why, and who might not have stood with us if they had known it. I cannot make that right, but if some of my old brothers are standing with the lion now, then perhaps I can help protect them from whatever dangers they are going to face. I blinked in surprise, feeling the unexpected warmth of hope rise in my chest. Will you come with me? I should see your lion for myself, Beverdan said, nodding. I suspect he is genuine, but I must make up my own mind. Once I know that, I can decide what to do next. If things are as you say, I can still walk away if I choose to. And if not, then perhaps I will bring our Gene Father's falsehoods into the open. You have transport. A shuttle in the valley, I replied, gesturing towards the west. You can likely reach it before nightfall. I will need your help armoring myself first, Beverdan said, ruefully, raising his stump of a left forearm, assuming it still goes together. We will get you back into it, I said with a smile. Come, let us. My box chimed with a priority notification from the Pax Fortitudinus. The Pax Fortitudinus. I frowned and activated it. My apologies, Lord Zabriel. I know you ordered that you were not to be contacted unless it was a matter of extreme urgency, but I believe this qualifies, Captain Montserrat said into my ear. The astropaths have picked up a distress call. Distress calls were commonplace in the Imperium Nihilus, so much so that other astropathic communication struggled to make itself heard above the psychic din of a galaxy in torment. Or so I was given to understand, for the captain to assume that this was something which would be of great importance to me. I grimaced. Distress call from where? And I believe that is where we shall end tonight. There's, I think, 6 chapters left. I think the story is reaching its climax, which hopefully we will see next time. You want the bean? Zero. Oh no. We will have the bean before the end. Where's the bean? Where is the bean? Bean! Hi! Hi! Yes. Yes. I am a tired bean. I have to get up for work in the morning. And even though that kind of leaves us on a cliffhanger and I really want to continue, if I keep going, it'll be like 1 in the morning and I'll end up finishing the book. Bananas, hi! Can we get a shout out for bananas, please? I should pick someone to raid. Yes. Tomorrow we are going to be playing Warhammer 40,000 Bolt Gun, which looks cool as hell. Yeah. Yeah. It should be fun. It should be fun. Who do I fancy raiding? Who do I fancy raiding? I think I know. Thank you for the gift sub, Reaper. Also, Reaper, you've been lurking. I didn't see you. Yes. Thank you all for choosing to come. Oh wait, no, they've not started. I don't want to wait. I want to go to bed soon. I'll raid Scort. Scort's a good bean. And they are already streaming. Yes. You just got home, Reaper. Oh, welcome home. You are our best bean. Oh. I don't know what to call this raid message. It's Tiger Raid. Tiger. Tiger Raid. Stretch. I needed that, to be honest. You missed story time. Don't worry, it's gonna be on YouTube soon. It'll be on YouTube by the end of the week, I promise. But yeah, let's go say hi to Scott for me, okay? I love you all. We're gonna play games tomorrow. Yeah. Yeah. We won't be doing Elden Ring this week just because I kind of feel like next Elden Ring stream is going to be really long, so I just want to do a little bit of gaming instead with something different. Love you all. I'll see you tomorrow, okay? Bye.